How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking, sir.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, this is being broadcasted right now. It is very cold on my side of the world. Yesterday, 2 days ago, we had minus 17. Today, the temperature is still good. How is the weather back where you are right now? You're in Pakistan. Where are you?
Yes, I'm in Pakistan right now, and the weather is like way too cold. I have two heaters around me, but still I'm wearing a jacket. So yeah,
So whereabouts in Pakistan?
Lahore.
Oh, Lahore. So Lahore, they do get their share of the cold as compared to Karachi.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yes,
the NWFP is much more colder as compared to Lahore, I believe, right? Because they're like at a much elevated place. Okay, so give me some introduction about yourself before we start.
right. So like, yeah, sure. My name is like Qasim Sadaquat, and I have done intermediate like 2 years ago, I would say, and then I enrolled in a university. It was affiliated with Punjab University, but I still had I had these thoughts that having a degree is not going to be it's not going to be beneficial for me in the long run, right? I'm just going to waste 4 years of my life. And then my big brother, he introduced me to Al Nafi, and then like yeah, since then I have been enrolled in Al Nafi. At first I was into DevOps, and then yeah, through add-ons I came into AI Ops,
Okay.
and today I am here. Yes,
But you started where? Like you started at which track?
DevOps, through
DevOps.
DevOps, right? Yes.
Okay, mashallah. That's good. I'm just writing something down. Uh, so can you please share the rubric? Okay, I'll ask you for your rubric. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So the presentation rules are the same. I can see your report in front of me, the assignments and all the things. Are you doing the Al Razak labs right now?
Yes, I'm halfway through them. I'm creating OpenShift and Red OpenShift cluster labs right now. But unfortunately, for some reason, Al Razak, the access of Al Razak was taken from me. So I had, I'm in the middle of that right now.
Why was it taken away from you?
I don't know. It beats me too.
Okay, you have to open a ticket and ask them what is happening. They should be able to
Yeah,
tell.
yeah.
Yes. There is a major exercise which is about to initiate from 15th of January, which is going to be, we are migrating towards Open edX portal, right? So
Mhm.
Open edX is the portal which was developed by MIT. It's an open source, but we have customized it heavily with respect to our requirements. It is going through the testing right now. So these kinds of things may occur at that time, not right now. So I'm just kind of curious, like what happened to you. But anyway, inshallah, um, there's a ton of things which are happening right now, and I can see your persona in front of me, performance report, student credentials, and stuff like that. So they will be basically coming back to you if they need more information. Depending on the outcome of today's meeting, how it will go and what will happen, we will let you know, inshallah. Okay. You can start the process of your presentation. The presentation is going to be for 15 minutes, followed by 30 to 45 minutes of Q&A. Okay?
Yeah, sir, I have a request to make if you allow me, please.
Yes, yes, go ahead.
I mean, before I have seen your, the exam topics, you have said that from 15 to 20 minutes, right? Today you said that it will be just 15 minutes. I mean, I'm, sitting here, I
Oh,
am
yes,
hoping that
yes,
I can ask you.
you can, you can stretch it to 20 minutes. Ideal is 15 minutes, right? Minimum,
Yeah.
that's the minimum. You can stretch it. There is no hard and fast rule, right? But like it should not be prolonged. That's one thing.
Yes,
It should not be more than 15 present slides, right? This is also very
yes,
important, right? So
yes,
don't
yeah,
worry,
I understand.
just relax. It seems
No,
like
sir,
bit on.
just listen. No, sir, just listen to me. Sir, I have, practiced this slide and I have rehearsed myself. I could not finish the slide in 23 minutes, even if I, chirp like a bird. So it's impossible for me. Like, just give me 23 minutes. I'll wrap up in that. I
Okay,
promise.
that's fine. That's okay. But again, you don't have to chirp like a bird, first of all. Secondly,
Yeah.
Secondly, you don't have to, like read a script. You have to understand a couple of things. When you're going for an interview, this is an interview preparation, right? When you're going for an interview, the goal is that you go through an exercise where you are able to convey your points, where they see that you know the topic very well. They see that you can deliver, you have the skills. And that's the kind of thing I'm looking over here. I'm not looking memorization. I'm not looking into how fast you communicate with me. No, I'm not looking into or nitpicking your English. That is not my goal right now. No, that's out of the scope. Yes, we look at the communication, the flow, and all of those things. But at the end of the day, it has to be related to how, you know, you will proceed and what things we will cover and so on and so forth, right? So it's going to be a very easy exercise for you. So just relax. You're like a bit
Yes.
stiff right now. Just relax, calm down, and inshallah, start your presentation. Okay,
All right. So I'll share my screen right now.
please.
My screen is visible, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right. I'll start. All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. My name is Qasim Sadaquat, and I'm currently pursuing diploma in AI Ops. And today we'll be discussing a crucial topic, my exam topic, which is implementing GitOps and AI-powered observability in multi-cloud DevOps environment on AWS and Azure, right? So, one might think like, why topic? What's so fascinating about this topic? So the answer is like, just to let you know that around 90% of today's enterprises, big corporations, organizations, they all rely on multi-cloud strategies. Yet still, managing these multi-cloud environment, the infrastructure, it remains a challenge. So that's where, GitOps and AI-powered observability comes into the action and rescues us, right? So basically, these are like the table of contents and like the key areas that we would focus on. And now let's move to the next slide, introduction, right? Overview of managing infrastructure in multi-cloud environment, right? So first of all, what is multi-cloud environment, right? Multi-cloud refers to the use of multiple cloud providers. In our case, we have AWS and Azure, right? And then importance of GitOps, point number two, importance of GitOps for consistent automated infrastructure. We'll cover this in the next slide. Role of AI in observability, right? Now, AI tool basically enhances traditional observability tools, which will enable predictive monitoring, proactive monitoring, and which will, in other words, lead to better uptime, high resilience, and all that. So our aim is we'll implement GitOps and leverage AI-powered observability to enhance efficiency and resilience across AWS and Azure. So, like the focus is simple, we'll build a unified DevOps strategy using GitOps and using AI tools across AWS and Azure, which will ensure operational resilience, efficiency, security, and compliance. Right. So, problem statement and the challenges, right? What are the challenges that we might face? First of all, increasing complexity in managing multiple cloud platforms. So this talks about the operational complexity that we face, right? Managing a multiple cloud environment is going to be complex due to disparate APIs, many different tools, many different policies. So it all requires consistent automation, consistent management, consistent monitoring. Point number two is security and compliance concerns in hybrid environment, right? So this is about the security risk we face. Since we are leveraging two cloud environments, our infrastructure will be big, the attack surface will be big, we'll make sure that we protect it, right? It's secure. Difficulty in maintaining real-time observability. Now, this speaks about, we'll face observability gaps, right? So, as I said, that traditional monitoring observability tools, oftentimes they are insufficient in cloud complex environments, right? And then point number four is need for consistent CI/CD practices across AWS and Azure. So this is about consistency, right? We'll have a lack of standardization, right? As I said, that we have different tools and all those different tools may have different policies, different configurations, and all of these differences may lead to inconsistencies. So rather than the tool being intertwining well with each other, they would intervene with each other, right? So the solution is simple. We'll utilize GitOps for standardization, and then we'll utilize AI-driven observability to the bridge the gaps in observability and monitoring and operations, right? So let's move to the next slide, which is overview of GitOps and AI-powered observability. Now, GitOps is, you can say GitOps is a set of practices or a methodology where we'll use Git as a single source of truth, right? We'll use Git as the single source of truth. Everything will begin from the Git, the repository, right? In order to, we use Git repositories to, in order to, maintain our infrastructure, application configuration, deployments, and all that. And we'll use Git as the single source of truth, right? Now, it provides us a declarative and a version controlled approach, right? We'll be utilizing GitOps workflows to automate our infrastructure, right? To, make sure that it is compliant, it is automated, and it is, everything is like compliant, right? Now, AI powered observability, right? We'll have, like, as I said, that infrastructure and application, like, infrastructure, or the we'll integrate AI to provide actionable insights, proactive monitoring, predictive insights, and all these, right? And then focus is like we'll ensure operational resilience, security, and efficiency in multi-cloud setups, right? Multi-cloud. Now, one might think, right, why multi-cloud? Why AWS and Azure, right? Why are we using two clouds, right? So the answer is simple. We have increased resilience, we will avoid or reduce vendor lock-in. We don't want to be dependent on a single cloud, right? And we can enjoy the, access. We'll have access to best features of both the clouds, and by far the best reason is cost optimization, right? Since we are leveraging right? Leveraging two clouds, we'll have a competitive pricing, right? Let's move to the next slide. The objectives are simple. GitOps implementation. Over here, the core principles of GitOps is Git repositories will contain all the configurations, infrastructure definition, Helm chart, Terraform files, all of these, even the application code, right? It will be declarative in nature. The infrastructure will be defined by a code, in format, and then automated sync from Git to deployment. We'll cover this in the page, which is GitOps operator sync loop, in more detail. So the tools we have is Flux. Flux is a lightweight GitOps tool, and then we have Argo CD. It is a bit advanced tool, comes with a web UI, and we have Terraform. We have Jenkins as well, right? We have Jenkins. Now it's an extension of Jenkins. It is used for Kubernetes environment that supports GitOps for, cloud native CI/CD pipelines, right? And then we have Terraform, Pulumi, AWS CloudFormation, Resource Manager. All of these are infrastructure as code tools. They are basically tools that will help us provision resources across AWS and Azure, right? Like VPCs, load balancers, EC2, and all these resources. So let's move to the key stages in a GitOps pipeline, right? So first of all, we have code commit in VCS, right? So right now we are over here, right? The developer stage, right? So the process will start when a developer writes the code or makes configuration changes locally and then pushes it to the Git repository. Now the repository could be, it can be GitHub, Bitbucket, anything, right? As long as the VCS is compatible with Git, right? Now Git will act as the central repository. It will contain all configurations. As I mentioned about, right, the source of truth, it will contain all the configurations, infrastructure file, Terraform files, Helm charts, application code. Git will contain all of these, right? And we'll have, oftentimes, we'll have, and this is not talked about much, we'll have a branching strategy, right? We'll have a feature branch for adding new features, right? We'll not just have a simple Git repository. We'll have a branching mechanism, right? A feature branch to add new features, and we'll have a dev branch to add, to test out for the development environment. We'll have a main or a master branch for the production environment, right? So these branches will, basically they will, solve 90% of our problems for, security related problems. And then point number two is pull request for code review. So like, developers will create a PR, which is pull request, MR, which is a merge request in the Git repository to review the proposed changes, right? So what changes did the developer push, right? To review these changes, they will create a PR, right? So this involves like, steps like peer reviewing, code linting, and the initial automation, stages takes place over here, right? Now, like once the code will, once the code passes through the approval process, right? This approval process, it is merged into the main branch, right? It will be approved and it is merged into the main or the target branch. In most cases, it is master or the main branch. And this merge will, basically trigger new actions into the GitOps pipeline. Now, one might think like, what's the difference between a traditional CI/CD pipeline and GitOps pipeline? For now, everything looks like, we are just focusing on the traditional CI/CD pipeline, but there is a big difference, right? The difference is in how they work and in what they manage, right? So GitOps will manage infrastructure, using Git as the single source of truth, and it will use infrastructure as code principles, and its approach is declarative in nature. Meanwhile, traditional CI/CD, it manages the code from the deploy stage to deploy stage, testing stage. Sorry, from the building, deploying, testing stage, and all these stages, right? The application code, right? It will not take care of the infrastructure. And on top, traditional CI/CD uses an imperative approach, right? So let's move to the third stage, which is CI pipeline, building and testing, right? After this, after the PR and the MR is merged, the CI pipeline will kick off, right? And in this pipeline, this involves like, building the application, right? We'll build the application over here. We'll run integration test, and we'll also build, artifacts, right? Let's suppose we have a Docker image. We'll create Docker image in this phase. Let's suppose we have a Java code. We'll create Maven artifacts over here. Let's suppose we have Terraform. Let's suppose we have Helm charts, right? We'll create Helm charts over here. So in this process, we'll create artifacts, right? So NCI, in the continuous integration pipeline, automated test will verify, that this new code that the developer just pushed, it integrates well with the code that is, it exists in the code base. So both of these integrates well or not. This will take place over here. And this includes like, unit testing, integration testing, and, basic security checks, right? We can even include over here like Snipe, SonarQube, all these tools as well, right? So once these artifacts are ready and like they are configured and are defined in the Git repository, this is the time where we will define our infrastructure, right? The desired state. I'll use this word desired state and actual state a lot in the few minutes. So we'll define the desired state of the application and the infrastructure, right? And then we'll commit it to the Git repository. In other words, what I'm saying is that I'll create a simple Terraform file in which I'll say that my infrastructure should look like this. I need a VPC in this XYZ region and this VMs and all these, right? So these all will be then, these all will be committed back to the Git repository, right? Now, keep in mind, everything is going to be version control, right? This is like the key. This is like, something which stands out in the in the GitOps pipeline, that everything is going to be version control, right? All the changes that are made to the configuration, Terraform files, to any sort of files that is present in the Git repository will be version control, right? This ensures that we have like a complete history of the entire changes that we made in case if we need to roll back to a previous XYZ version, right? So everything will be version controlled. And then we have GitOps operator sync loop, right? Now, please pay attention. And this is like the crux of this slide, GitOps operator sync loop. Now, as I said, that Flux and Argo CD are GitOps tool, right? They all have an operator component. Now, this operator component will continuously monitor the Git repository. All right, it will continuously run in a sync loop, making sure that it will run in a sync loop and making sure the operator will make sure that the Git repository, the desired state is in line, sorry, the actual state that is in the production server is in line with the desired state that is in the Git repository, right? So the operator's job is to make sure that they both are in sync, they both are in line with each other, and like there is no difference between these states, right? So it will have a comparison, right? The operator will have a comparison 24/7. Operator will compare the current state that is in the production server or the main clusters or whatever, which is running, with the desired state that is present in the Git repository, right? Now it will make sure, that let's suppose if a difference is detected between these two states, right? Now the operator will make sure that it brings the actual state in line with the desired state. Now, one might think that, how can the operator even perform these actions, right? How can the operator perform actions on scale level, on our production level clusters, right? Who gave the operator the permissions, right? So the operator will, in most cases, use Kubernetes role-based access control list. It will need to be authenticated and authorized, and we can even provide it with cloud native identity and access management services like AWS IAM and Azure Active Directory, right? And then last stage we have is deployment trigger. This is not the last stage. This pipeline will be continued in the next slide as well. Deployment trigger. So, like as I said, that if a drift is detected between these two states, right? So like it will trigger, the GitOps operator will trigger deployment, right? It will trigger a deployment. The deployment will, the deployment involves, or, it can include application file, Terraform files, Helm charts, any sort of files, right? Or manifest file or stuff like that, right? Now, what will be the deployment tool? Right now we are over here. I'm sorry, I didn't, point it with my, right now we are at Terraform, right? What is the deployment trigger? So what tools will we have that will, perform the deployment for us, right? So we have infrastructure as code tools such as Terraform. We can use Crossplane, we can use Pulumi. All these are infrastructure as code tools. Or other than that, we can use kubectl, we can use Helm if we have Helm charts and all that. So this was all about this slide. Now, SysOps, we'll talk about AI-driven observability, right? So observability is basically collecting and analyzing logs and matrices to understand the system health, right? Now will AI extend observability by detecting anomalies and all these, right? So the tools we have is AWS CloudWatch. It is a real-time monitoring tool of AWS resource with AI-driven insights and Azure Monitor is similar to AWS CloudWatch, but for Azure. And we have Prometheus, it's a time series forecasting tool, a monitoring tool. And then Grafana, it's a simple dashboard tool. We'll cover the examples later. Let's move to the last stages of the GitOps pipeline. Stage number 6 is drift detection and reconciliation. Over here, we'll talk about the self-healing aspect of GitOps, right? So as I said that the GitOps, the operator will continuously, check for any drift between the desired state and the actual state, and make sure that there is no differences between these states, right? Now drift can occur due to many different reasons, right? It can occur due to network latency related issues. It can occur due to some unexpected error, or some anomaly, or due to anything, right? Or due to any failure, right? This is where self-healing comes into the action, right? So like let's suppose if the drift it detects a if the operator detects a drift between the desired state, it will automatically reconcile the actual state with the desired state, the desired state that is present in the gate, right? So it will ensure that our infrastructure is highly available, it is consistent, and it is compliant, right? So this is why GitOps is like just amazing, right? And then point number 7 is continuous monitoring and observability, right? For this, we have the examples, right? Monitoring agents such as AWS CloudWatch, Azure Monitor will collect the data on resource usage, application performance, and errors. And then we'll have observability dashboards such as Grafana and Prometheus that will provide insights into these matrices. Now we'll also have AWS DevOps Guru, but we'll talk about that in the next slide. And then next, we can set up alerts, right, to notify the DevOps team if any issues are detected post deployment. We'll also talk about SNS, simple notification service, in the next slide. And then last stage is rollback capability, right? GitOps will provide a strong rollback mechanism, right? As I said that everything will be version controlled, so we can easily roll back to the previous environment. Just a simple git revert is all it takes, right? AI for insights, right? AI in observability. Now, AI tools like AWS DevOps Guru analyze matrices and logs to provide actionable insights. So we have AWS DevOps Guru. It identifies operational issues and suggests solutions, right? So over here we have a simple diagram. We have a pod that contains two containers, Java and OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry is used to generate logs, traces, and all of these. And AWS CloudWatch will be collecting them, and it will send it to AWS DevOps Guru. And AWS DevOps Guru has many different, behind the scene, it has many ML and AI algorithms. We'll talk about that in the last slide. It will perform insights, and it can send us simple notification. It can give us recommendations, suggestions, and all that through SNS, right? We'll not talk about Amazon SageMaker over here. We'll talk about that in the last slide. So the examples is simple. We can use AWS DevOps Guru to identify underperforming resources, right? Azure ML is similar to DevOps Guru, but for Azure, right? Now let's move to the another slide, cybersecurity, securing multi-cloud pipelines. Now our security focus is over here. We'll talk about securing the multi-cloud pipelines, not the infrastructure, right? We'll talk about the infrastructure security in the cloud security slide. So our security focus is simple. We'll manage identities and access control across two cloud environment. We'll make sure that we implement zero trust architecture. Zero trust architecture is it's simple. The zero trust architecture is like it will assume that any request made from whether internal or external is a threat to us, and it should be validated, authenticated, and authorized, identified, and then we let it pass in, right? So we make sure all of these. And then the tools we have is AWS IAM and Azure Active Directory for managing user roles, right? So identity and access management tools we have is AWS IAM and Azure Active Directory. We can create users, we can define policies through this and enforce it on the users, on the groups, and the service account. In other words, I'm trying to say roles, right? Now we have AWS KMS and Azure Key Vault, right? They are used for securing secrets, keys, and certificates. HashiCorp is similar to that, but it is an open source tool. And then we have Caspi, right? Caspi it's like an all-rounder tool, is a security tool that acts as a control point for enforcing security policies across cloud platform. It is cloud agnostic, and I believe it is proprietary. Yeah. And then the examples are like simple. We can implement multi-factor authentication for accessing our Git repositories to enhance security. The benefits we'll have is enhanced security posture, reduced risk, and secure deployments, right? GRC automation in multi-cloud compliance. Now I know this slide is like it is pretty dry and loaded. Trust me, I don't like GRC myself. GRC basically focuses on maintaining adherence to standards like ISO 27001, GDPR, SOC 2, and it provides us with automated checks for regulatory compliance. GRC reduces human error, automated compliance reduces human error and ensures consistent practices. Now I talked about a framework which is ISO 42001 AIMS. Now if if since we'll be talking about creating our own AI powered observability tool, so we should just know about this framework. I'm not saying that we should be compliant audit with this framework. This framework is basically it helps us to be work, maintain, create our own AI based systems to how ethically, morally we can work with the AI. So we'll just make sure that we are we just know about this model, right? And then the tools we have for compliance automation is AWS Security Hub, right? It is centralized security and compliance finding tool. It is also used as a security tool. It is also used as a compliance tool, right? And then we have AWS Config and Azure Policy, right? It monitors resource configuration for compliance, helps us to assess, audit, and evaluate the configuration. And then we have Cloud Custodian, right? Cloud Custodian is a policy as code tool. We can create our own policies through YAML and JSON files, and we can enforce it on whatever sort of resource that we want. And it is cloud agnostic as well. And then for microservices environment, we have OPA, Gatekeeper, Kubernetes native policy engine tool. The examples are simple, and the benefits we'll have is consistent governance, reduce manual audit, and adherence to regulation, right? And let's move to the last, not to the last slide, cloud security. Over here, we'll talk about securing our infrastructure, right? So the tools for this we have is AWS Security Hub. Now, as I said, that Security Hub is also used for compliance and is also used for security, right? It will provide a comprehensive of our security, and it alerts and posture across AWS accounts. And then Azure Security Center is similar to AWS Security Hub, but for Azure. And we have AWS Guard Duty. It's a threat detection service that continuously monitors AWS environments for potential malicious activity. For security, twist lock are simple container security systems for protecting microservices environment. The examples are very simple, and the benefits we'll have is improved threat visibility, protection against vulnerability, and secure deployments, right? Now, AI models behind observability, right? Now, this over here is like a simple breakdown of the AI models that are relevant to us, their use cases and their application and how they fit into our context, right? Now, AI models are simple, right? I don't think so that it is necessary to just speak about every of them. You can pause the video and see for yourself. These are very simple, right? Now I'll move to the last slide, which is building an AI-powered observability model from concept to deployment. Right now, I'll just take 2 minutes over here. So why are we even, creating our own AI model, right? So in some cases, we'll have business, we'll have business requirement, our the AI model that the AI tools that AWS and Azure is providing us from the tool from the box is they are not very good. So in case of that, we can create our own. In case we don't want our data to be sent to other resources, we can create our own model and train the model on our own data, right? So first of all is we'll define the problem, right? We'll over here we'll define the objective, the scope, and we'll include other team members like DevOps team, SysOps team, and all the teams, and we'll define the success criteria over here, right? Now the objective can be simple, right? The objective can be, right, how can we automatically detect anomalies in our performance related logs across our multi-cloud environments. This can be an us, right? And then point number two is collect and prepare the data, right? We'll first identify the resources from where we can collect the data, right? We can collect the data from AWS CloudWatch, Azure Monitor, right? We can collect the logs, traces, and monitor logs, traces, and matrices. The traces we can collect from AWS X-Ray, and we can collect from Jaeger, other open source tools, right? And then for data ingestion, right? Since we are gathering a lot data, right? So we can use like stream processing frameworks, like we have Apache Kafka, we have AWS Kinesis to collect real-time data from all the resources. And since we are collecting data, we need a place to store it, right? We can use S3, we can use Lake Storage, Blob Storage, Azure Blob Storage, and all that. And then we'll clean the data and process the data, right? Over here, we'll handle the data, handle the missing values in the data. We have techniques such as imputation and interpolation. We'll normalize the data. We'll perform noise reduction on the data. We'll perform feature engineering on the data, and then we'll label the data, right? Right now, the data is not labeled, right? We can we'll label the data manually, right? First of all, we'll have to label the data manually, and then we'll develop the model, right? In the previous slide, we have seen a few models. We'll select which one is according to our standards, or which one we are going to use. And then, we'll also discuss that, what sort of tasks the algorithm will perform, the model will perform. Either it's going to perform regression tasks, either it's going to perform binary classification, multi-classification, all these tasks, right? And then, we'll also choose activation functions, right? Let's suppose our model's job is to, like, here's the decision boundary, and our model's job is to, say yes anomaly or no anomaly, right? So it is a simple classification problem, right? So over here we can use sigmoid activation function, right? We can use tangent hyperbolic activation functions, and like the frameworks we have, we can perform all of this like through TensorFlow, Keras, and River, all these libraries, right? Now we need a place to experiment. This is the point where we'll use Amazon SageMaker, Azure ML, all these platforms where we can test, deploy, train our AI models, right? Or like, let's suppose if you don't want to use this, we have MLflow, Kubeflow, weights and biases. When I say weights and biases, I do not mean the weights and biases parameters in a neural network. Weights and biases. Then have model training and validation, right? Over here, using k cross validation method, and then we'll train the model, right? We'll need to hyper parameter tuning. We have such as rolling average, moving average, these techniques to make sure that the model is evolving, right? The model is performing good, right? So we'll evaluate the matrices, right? We have some measurements such as precision, recall, F1 score, all these. We'll make sure that these matrices helps us to assess the performance of our model, and we'll keep on comparing the model with using different activation functions to make sure that we select the best one, right? And then lastly, we have the model deployment strategy, right? Deploy the model, right? So we'll package the model into a deployable format, right? Let's suppose I just know one. We have ONNX, Open Exchange Neural Network, and if we are using Kubeflow, we can deploy it on Kubernetes as well, right? And then we'll choose the deployment environment, right? We can either go with serverless architecture, or we can go with Kubernetes microservice architecture, right? So we'll deploy the model, and for performance monitoring, right? Let's monitoring and optimize, right? We'll make sure that the model is fed new data. So the model is, it keeps on learning with new data, and it keeps on getting better, right? And then lastly, we'll finalize, deliver. We'll create a simple user guide. We'll create a technical guide. We'll show a real-time demo to the stakeholders, and we'll talk about the ROI, right? And lastly, I talked about the top-notch benefit, which is the use of GANs. Sir, can I speak about this, or like I'll stop because I know I have taken a lot of time?
Well, it's a very loaded presentation. I'm going to create an exception, and I'm going to allow you another 5 minutes.
Okay, now the use of GANs. I am audible, right?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay, now the use of GANs, right? Now, let me just tell you one thing. AI without data, without historical data, is just a dumb garbage, right? It is dumb. It doesn't know anything. It needs historical data, right? So AI needs data. And let's suppose, what if we don't have data? We might have rare incidents that we don't have any data related to an incident, right? In case of zero-day vulnerability, right? Zero-day vulnerability is like an error that is unfixable, that has no data related to it. So that's where a human being will come into and solve the problem, right? This is where a human being will always stand ahead of AI, right? But let's suppose the human being fixes the error. Now we have a small amount of data related to that specific zero-day vulnerability, right? Now, the use of GANs, right? The use of GANs. GANs is like, it's an adversarial network that consists of two neural networks, right? A discriminator and a generator, right? Now, these two models will compete against each other in order to create more real synthetic-like data. So in other words, we are now creating our own data, right? Through GANs, right? GANs is basically generative adversarial networks, right? To generate synthetic data sets to simulate potential attacks or vulnerabilities for AI models to detect, right? Now the data that they will create will act as historical data, and AI can learn more better using the historical data. And of course, for some people, using GANs can be, it can be an overkill, because I mean, it's not like the end of everything. We have to, use everything. But I just said that this will be used in, rare case incident. We can use this in simulation testing and even in zero-day vulnerability. Now we have a few uh, algorithms that are, under GAN, such as basic GAN. We have deep convolutional GAN, and we have style GAN, but that's used for image creation. So this is like the use of GAN, right? We can create our own data. So with that, I thank the audience for their time and attention, and I thank you. Jazakallah.
So the presentation was good. I was not expecting this to be this good. So mashallah, that was a good presentation. In terms of when I was listening to you, it was engaging. But at the same time, you could have added some more visuals to it, right? But apart from that, I think that if you present and give an interview, a potential interview to anyone regarding this topic, that in itself is a six-figure salary, position for you, right? You have to position yourself in terms of making sure that you are able to explain the outcomes of each of these solutions, right? Now, obviously, we can go in much more detail and technical when we go to the Q&A. So we have to jump in quickly because we were running a little bit behind the schedule. So I have a series of questions. This is one of the biggest problem we have, right? So I was taking the notes. One of the biggest problems when the cloud came was vendor locking. What does it mean? Why is it
All right. So
like very uh, important for a given organization to understand, like, whether we should go for vendor lock-in or not?
all right. So like vendor lock-in is basically us depending upon a single cloud, right? Let's suppose it is AWS, and like we will be dependent on AWS. So it's not like a good practice to be dependent upon a single cloud provider, since we are talking about high availability, right? So let's suppose that data center of AI, for some reason, it evaporates for some reason, right? What will you do, right? We'll just sit idly. We have nothing to do.
No, that's
So it
that's
is
redundancy. That's redundancy. That has nothing to do with vendor lock-in. I mean, Amazon has places all over the world. They have data centers all over the world, right? You can define and give it into a given region. But from a business
yeah.
perspective, what does vendor lock-in really means? Do you know? I mean,
So, I mean,
I
I will
covered
take it that
I covered this in CSSP to a certain extent, right? So it has to do something with risk analysis. So now answer the question. We haven't started the
with with
Q&A, by the
yeah,
way.
I understand. With risk analysis, you said, right?
Well, every decision an organization makes, they need to understand what are the pros and cons of this given decision, right? What are the risks? What are the benefits if we go down this pathway? So my question to you is, there are two, why is vendor lock-in an important discussion topic and a risk topic for an organization? Why is it important?
Okay.
You
Okay.
mentioned
So here's the thing.
you don't want to depend on one cloud, but why? There are certain elements that comes into play.
I mean, there are many elements, like we'll have cost. If we use
Yes.
multiple cloud environments, we'll have cost efficiency, we'll have high resilience, high availability, scalability, and then Uh,
Essentially, it's the cost. Essentially, is the cost. Scalability of high availability, all of those things. You answered the question, but I'm just telling you, when you are in an interview, they are going to ask you, because like for an organization, they can use, we use AWS and Azure both, right? So AWS is cheaper than Azure, even though Azure has given us hundreds and thousands of dollars of credits, right? Almost $150,000 of credits, more than that. But still, AWS is faster, it's cheaper per virtual machine, it's economical, it is scalable, yes, but at the same time, their service is pretty good, right? But still, at the end of the day, if you just do business with one cloud vendor, for example, AWS, and if something happens, AWS management changes, and they rack up the pricing, you will be stuck at that time with AWS until you have a migration strategy to go towards someone else like Azure or GCP. So know this, know this, that when you are going for an interview, you need to understand, you know, are we in a scenario of a vendor lock-in in your cloud? Like, do we have all of our eggs in one basket with AWS? Or have we divided them between AWS and Azure and GCP? It is a multi-cloud uh, environment or a tri-cloud environment, which is where like we're using three. Either way, we should look into all of those things. So that's just you know some advice I'm going to give it to you. Okay. All right. So let's jump into the Q&A. You're good, mashallah. You're good. The topic is advanced, right? When you went through the course, I'm going to ask you at the end, what have you learned so far, right? Okay. By the way, in Al Razak, there are generative labs. There are labs which are related in AI ops where you have to deploy GANs, you know, generative adversarial networks uh, to train the models using open source solutions. Okay, so I'm just letting you know right now. Okay, so let's jump in. I'm going to give you some, let's start with some, let's test the water, go with some easy stuff, manageable questions. So, how would you use Git as a single source of truth in a GitOps pipeline? Why? Why do we have to do that?
I mean, we'll use Git as a single source of truth in our pipeline because it is easy to control everything from a single point of view, right? I mean, all you need to do is, just update the manifest files in the Git repository, and the operator will, for yours, I mean, it will automatically, deploy that for you in the production environment for you. That so it is, it will reduce manual deployments. If you have manual deployments, there are possibilities that you have many different errors, right? So we use Git operator, and on top it also is version control, right? Everything is going to be version controlled in the Git environment, right? Making sure that everything is auditable, reproducible, in fact, even revertible, right? You can just go back to the previous XYZ version, and all it needs is a single git revert commit.
Okay, that's good. Let me write down your score. Okay. All right. So essentially, storing all configurations and infrastructure definitions in Git repositories, use GitOps tools like Flux and Argo that you mentioned, right, in your presentation, and maintain a declarative infrastructure definition, right, to ensure consistency. You don't want to be,
Yes.
don't want to end up with a, configuration drift, right? Okay, so which tool would you use for real-time monitoring in a multi-cloud environment? In
Okay,
AWS,
I mean, there are
so give me an example of AWS, give me an example of Azure, give me an example of open source. Three.
a monitoring and observability a monitoring tool, right? So for
Real
AWS,
time.
I'll
It's a,
use
it's a real time. What tool would you use for real time monitoring in a multi cloud environment?
Okay, sure. So for AWS, I'll use AWS CloudWatch, and then
Yeah.
for Azure, I'll use Azure Monitor, and then an open source I can use Prometheus, I can use Datadog, just name it. We have so many, right? But Prometheus is by far the best one because it integrates well with Kubernetes-based environments.
Good job. Okay. Delete this. Okay. All right. Good score. So let me give you a scenario. Your GitOps workflow in a containerized environment is vulnerable, right? To some image vulnerabilities. The image has some network vulnerabilities, some application vulnerabilities. How would you secure the entire workflow in this case? How would you do that?
Okay, there's a vulnerability in an image, a Docker image, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I mean, if I can, speak about first, I'll talk about identification and then mitigation and then post incident response, right? So first of all, we'll identify. How can we identify this, right? We have resources such as DevOps Guru that will, help us give us insights based upon the logs and traces or the matrices that AWS CloudWatch will be, taking in and giving to DevOps Guru, and it will make sure that nothing is left behind, and it will provide us with insights, anomaly detection, proactive monitoring, and all that. So this is like identify, right? Identity. Let's suppose we have identified that we have an error in a Docker image, right? Now, what are the steps that I'll take, right? The mitigation steps, right? First of all, as I said, that since we are leveraging AI observability, AI itself can give us many, good suggestions, recommendations that, do these steps, right? First of all, isolate that image, the whatever server that is, running that image, isolate it from the entire infrastructure, from the network and all that. So in the mitigation steps, I can do this, right? I can isolate the entire the server that holds that specific image that has the vulnerability, right, from the entire infrastructure. So it doesn't pollute my entire infrastructure, right? So I'll isolate it, I'll segment it, and I'll perform vulnerability test on it, right? As I said that we have Twistlock, Aqua Security, Falco. All these are container solutions for threat detection, vulnerability. Now they also will, help me detect the threats and provide me with more insights to make sure that what are the steps that I can do. And let's suppose that let's suppose that we don't have any solution, right, and we need an incident response like ASAP. We can just go ahead and revert back to the Git that was the previous environment, right? And that image will not be there anymore, so we'll be back to the stable version.
Okay. How long have you been studying with us?
2 years. Yeah, up to 2 years.
Up to 2 years now? And
Yes,
you have
I mean
taken
almost close to that.
you have taken all the courses?
Yes, sir.
Did you find it like challenging and good for you that you were learning new things?
Yeah, of course. I mean, 2 years ago, I didn't even know the spelling of Linux. Now, alhamdulillah, I mean, I feel, confident.
Very good. Okay. So your team is tasked with creating an AI-powered predictive maintenance system, right? Where like it is able to uh, detect any anomalies and whatnot, and also able to push the patches. It's a maintenance system for AWS and Azure infrastructure. List to me the tools and the processes and the algorithms you will use to create this AI-powered predictive maintenance system. Now, before you answer this question, know this. Organizations are trying to create this that you already know about and presented in your presentation. These topics are not coming from thin air, right? These are coming from here. Okay. So as an ex-CIO, now I'm a CIO in my own company, but CIO coming from the industry and the CTO and the CISO, these are the challenges that I'm seeing that my colleagues are facing now, who are now the CIO and the CTO and the CISOs. Answer this question very carefully, right? How would you design? Your team is tasked with creating an AI-powered predictive maintenance system for AWS and Azure infrastructure Details, list to me the tools, the algorithms, and the processes you would use to achieve this. You
Okay,
mentioned
like in other words,
those in your presentation. All of these things are coming from your presentation and the topics that we have taught you. Okay, go ahead.
so I am, tasked with creating a predictive maintenance model, right? And
Yes.
how will I do it, right? So first of all, I mean, this is just like, I'll just go through my last slide again, right? So first of all, I'll define the objective, right? Create a predictive maintenance model. And then I'll choose the algorithms, right? The algorithms are like long short-term memory. We have autoencoders. We have SVM, support vector machine. They are used for, binary classification as well, right? So uh, predictive maintenance algorithms, right? Yes, we can use long short-term memory, right? They are also used for predictive maintenance. So, and then I'll use I'll define that, and then I'll choose the activation function, right? Long short-term memory is a neural network-based model. So for this, I'll choose the activation function. I'll have ReLU, leaky ReLU, ELU, all these activation functions, since I'll be needing all of them, to perform test or using all the activation functions to choose that which of these provides me with the best evaluated matrices, like which provides me with the best precision, recall, F1 score, accuracy, all these, which will provide me with the best measures. So this is like how I'll create a simple predictive model, predictive maintaining model. And I mean, like, should I say that how will I deploy it as well?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
So you can use AWS SageMaker and Azure Machine Learning. You already mentioned some of the things over there. The long shot TM for time series and data analysis and anomaly detection. We covered some of these things in the AI courses. You covered those courses of Dr. Yasir?
Of Dr. Yasir, yes. Yasir, but I guess, yeah. And yeah, I mean, he's the one who taught me all of these, right? Not some, I mean, he has covered all of them.
So whatever he has covered those things. But then we want our students to think outside the box of how we can implement this. That's what organizations are looking for. Like everything is now online, AI is there. Organizations now are contemplating and thinking and reflecting of how they can bring this AI into their businesses, right? So whatever questions I'm asking you, these are the next generation questions. So even if you write an article on that on LinkedIn, people will start contacting you, right? So this is extremely important for you to understand. Okay, let me put the score here because this is the rubric I have. Okay. Okay. All right. So next question is, GANs. So give me some names of the open source GANs, that you know about.
You mean the algorithms?
The open source frameworks and implementation that provides, open source GANs, generative adversarial networks, right? Like for example, DC GAN, deep convol.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yes.
So I have, first of all, we have basic GAN, basic generative adversarial networks. We have DC GAN, deep convolutional GAN, and we have style GAN, right? Style GAN, I mean, it's used for image creation and all that. So
Good, good. Have you started playing with these things?
yes, I mean, yes, I have a bit. I mean, I was, I don't know how to say this, but uh, NLP. Yeah, I was very much into NLP, right? And unfortunately, I could not use NLP anywhere in this, right, in my slides. But I love NLP very much, and we have a lot of chatbots, right, like Character AI and all these chatbots that we can use. And through them, I have learned many different things, like even the text generation, how GAN performs that, right? How, like, we have a discriminator and a generator, right? The discriminator make sure that it distinguish between real and fake, and generator will make on, creating more data. So
Okay, this is good, good. What kind of system do you have at home?
I have a gaming PC.
A gaming PC. Okay, that's why. Uh, what's the GPU card in there?
It's 3070
Oh,
GTX.
3070. Okay. My son uh, just built up his own, as part of this good performance at school and subjects and Quran, Hifz and everything. Uh, he got a 4090 as a gift from me.
Oh,
Art-
4090.
Yes, right. You know why he bought it? Just so that he can keep on running his models that he's working on. He's 11 years
Hmm.
he's 11 years old.
Mash, mashallah.
So he's working on some of these advanced GANs models and whatnot, right? But I'm his teacher, so when he's in the car with me, he's discussing stuff. When he's with me outside walking, we will be going for sledding because there's a lot of snow, so we'll be going for sledding. So my wife and everyone at home got tired of this conversation. They said, like, every time we see you with Baba, you're discussing AI in cybersecurity, AI in DevOps, AI in cloud. What is this? What are you doing? So I told my wife and my parents, said, like, this is the next generation stuff. If we harness the kids at this young age, then they will become the entrepreneurs of the future, right? That is the goal of a Nafi, right?
Hmm.
Inshallah. That's the so if you do all of these things, you will go at high places, inshallah. Okay.
Inshallah.
Okay. The next question I have is basically, so what kind of game do they play? The generator and the discriminator, right? You call this something like these two plays. What kind of game?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase the question?
So, you know, the generative adversarial networks, it's a very fascinating thing. It's a class of machine learning models, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so there are two roles, there are a good cop and a bad cop, right? So there's a generator and there's a discriminator, right? So what do you call this? What is the goals of generator? What's the goal of generator?
Of generator, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the generator component will keep on generating new data, and its goal is to make sure that the data that it's creating is like so realistic that it can fool the discriminator.
Yes, that's what I wanted to ask you. Keep your answers
Okay.
short. Try to keep your answers short, okay? All right.
Yeah,
And what is the goal of discriminator?
its goal is to its goal is to distinguish between real and fake data and make sure that the generator cannot fool it.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm really happy. I think we're on to something. Okay. This is very good conversation. I mean, this is very good exam. Uh, Calm down. Have some water.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, all right. So, going to throw some more questions at you. Some looking at your presentation. So, a critical application on AWS crashes during peak hours, right? Due to resource exhaustion. Uh, Using AI powered tools, and it was running on Kubernetes, the cluster was not configured for horizontal and vertical scaling. So, resource exhaustion has happened now. Using AI powered tools, how can you identify the root cause and suggest preventive measures? Why did this happen in the first place? How can you identify that for incident management purposes and lessons learned afterwards?
Okay, so we have a few models like decision tree, causal inferences, and for this we have like AWS CloudWatch anomaly detector. I don't mean AWS CloudWatch, the normal CloudWatch. There's a component in CloudWatch known as anomaly detector, right? Now it performs for us, like, it performs root cause analysis. The models that I said, that causal inferences, decision trees. So these are like basically unsupervised learning algorithms. So they help us, deep dig to the root cause of the failure of the, whatever, the fail that happened, right?
So it's like using AWS CloudWatch to analyze the CPU and memory utilization through these models to see and learn, what happened, so on and so forth. Then you could also use AWS Code Guru to find out. We use Code Guru, right?
Mhm.
And there was a lot of leakage in our portal, right? We were trying to plug it, but we couldn't, so we had to migrate. So that's why we are moving towards the new portal. But I will take that answer, um, and that was good. Okay. Uh, so you are tasked to design an observability system for a hybrid Kubernetes environment spanning on AWS and Azure, right? AWS EKS, Azure AKS. Uh, your client wants proactive monitoring with anomaly detection, real-time matrix, alerting. How would you design the system, right? Detailing the tools you would use and how they interact with each other. How would you do that? You've mentioned these tools because, like, you need to think outside the box, right? The tools are there. How can you assemble them into a solution? It's already mentioned in your presentation, right?
Okay.
How would you do that?
Okay. So the task is that we need to create a unified observability tool that will collect logs and matrices from AWS and Azure. So all we need is, like, we can integrate the APIs from AWS CloudWatch and Azure Monitor, towards our model, right? I mean, if you want me to say that, I can say it again. Like, for anomaly detection, uh, we have algorithms such as, okay, I'm forgetting the name, right? For anomaly detection, we have I mean, root cause, no, for anomaly detection, I just learned it, right? We have unsupervised learning algorithm, right? We have k-means clustering algorithm
Got the
for
full, you got
anomaly.
the full marks. Don't worry about it. Already got the full marks. You use the keyword, a unified alerting system. And then you
Okay.
already have mentioned Prometheus, CloudWatch, DevOps Guru, Azure Anomaly Detector, all of those things in your presentation, right?
Okay.
Did you use AI to create this presentation?
No, I mean, yes, I used AI to, like,
I
compress the data that I had. Yes. I mean, the data was so much, right? I just used the key stages that was mentioned in the PDF that you guys
Good, which
provided
is
earlier,
okay.
right?
Which is okay. You need to learn how to use AI properly. But when you're answering the questions, you don't have access to AI right now. So you're sitting in front of me and answering the questions. That's exactly how you have to prepare yourself to be ready when you're going for the interview. Okay. All right. So uh, one last question, and then we are done. Okay. So your organization is adopting zero trust architecture. You have heard me asking this question in most of my sessions. The reason we broadcast these sessions is to make sure everyone is prepared of what is it coming towards them, right? We want them to be successful, right? We only create exceptions for those women who don't want to come online because they observe Islamic parda, or right, or whatever the case is. But apart from that, it is mandatory for everyone to come and talk to us, right? So using organization, like your organization is adopting zero trust architecture across AWS and Azure for securing GitOps pipelines. You have to secure the pipelines. What steps would you take to enforce the zero trust architecture? And what tools would you use in AWS and Azure?
All right. So first of all, zero trust is like nobody will be trusted, right? For that, I have identity and access management tools. I have AWS IAM, Azure Active Directory, to limit the access to my AWS and Azure resources, right? I can create policies and enforce it on users and groups and service account, right? Roles. And so for identity and accessment, I'll use AWS IAM and Azure Active Directory. And let's suppose for as you said that we have AKS and EKS as well, right? Our infrastructure is on Kubernetes. So for this, I can use OPA Gatekeeper. It's also a cloud native policy engine, right? We can create our own policies, and we'll create policies as code through OPA and enforce it on the users and group. And we'll also have role-based access control, right? Kubernetes role-based access control to grant least privilege access to, like let's suppose like I'm a student, I'll not have the entire infrastructure access. uh, Someone with a level 6 engineer who's a CTO, CIO may have that, but I'll not have that. So we'll make sure that everyone is having access based upon their roles, role-based access control. So this is how I'll implement a zero trust architecture. And yeah.
Okay, good. I'm just compiling your score right now. Just bear with me. This is just a grid I need to complete, and then it does everything automatically itself.
Okay. I mean, this went very quickly.
Okay. Uh, would you like to know your score?
Yes, please.
How did you perform?
I mean, I don't know. Average, I guess.
Are you sure? I mean, you came in very well prepared, I would say. Good preparation. Uh, you know, everything was good, mashallah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, amazing work. You scored 92 in your presentation. Okay.
Okay.
And you scored 95 in your interview, 95%. So you scored altogether 93.5. I think you are now in the second highest score right now. You've even beaten the odds of taking down Sister Zara and Shanze might be. So that's the gold medal category you have right now. Really, really happy.
Okay.
Few days ago, you came online to ask things that you were worried about something, and I told you, why were you so worried?
Yeah, I mean, because I had a thought that, I'll just, it will take me 50 minutes, like the brother Usman Parvez, like the 55 slides guy. I thought that it will take me time to,
No, he
talk about everything.
okay. So he came unprepared. I don't need 55 slides. I only need 10, 15 slides, maximum 15, to maximum 20 slides. You have 20 minutes, right? The goal is to test your knowledge and your efficiency. Now, if you do the same things behind an Al-Razak, for you to land on a job in Middle East, working on 15 to 25,000 reals or dirhams per month is going to be very easy for you, right? What what do you plan to do is the question I have for you now. I mean, this was phenomenal. I'm really happy. Actually, I
Thank
was
you.
asking them to reschedule this thing because I had to take my kids out. My wife runs a medical practice, so today it's a day off, right? So for us to have days off on where everyone is off is very difficult. But they said, like, but I asked them, like, if it can be done. If not, then I will take it. Everyone is waiting outside for me. I have to go now.
Oh,
But well, I'm feeling very happy and very enthusiastic that you just made my day showing
thank
me
you.
I've done, mashallah. So this is my recommendation for you. Okay. You have scored phenomenal marks. Your presentation marks will be, MCQ marks will be combined. So we will let you know. However, if anyone has performed cheating or anything like that, they will face the, the consequences, right? I'm not implying you have done. We don't know. I don't have those results from in front of me. The AI is checking for patterns and stuff like that. And it's a pretty big model, so it is able to pick up any subtle differences quite easily. Did you how long it took you to complete the MCQs?
You have asked me this previously on a live, and I said that it took me 23 days.
Completing all the MCQs.
Yeah, completing all the 4,600 MCQs.
Okay, mashallah, that's good. So because you were just doing MCQs day and night.
Yeah, I mean, I have been enrolled with. I mean, I have been attached with you guys since 2 years, but it's just been like 3 months since I bought the EduQual. So I hope that understands, right? I first finished the entire course and then I enrolled in EduQual.
Yeah, now
So
it is
yeah, I had nothing to
mandatory
do.
from January of 2025. It'll be mandatory for everyone to register for the exam immediately, right? We don't want to delay EduCall any further. So you have to register for the exam and go for the exam immediately while you're going through the courses anyway. I'm really
Mhm.
happy. MashaAllah, this is really good. What do you plan to do?
I mean, for now, I hope that I'll get a job or like my big brother. I mean, my father had he had brain hemorrhage 4 years ago. So like my big brother supports me. So he was saying like you should apply for masters somewhere and then do something about that. But
If
I did have.
secure
Hmm,
a job first. First, start working in the
hmm,
right, and pass all the Kubernetes exams.
hmm.
Okay, pass CCAT, CKA. Where is your brother? Where's your big brother?
He lives in Saudi Arabia.
Ask him to buy you the Kubernetes exam voucher because they are an incredible sale right now, right? The Kubernetes exams are going to help you further. You already have the diploma in your hand, but that is going to help you further, right? Start working in the industry, and this is my recommendation. You have done your intermediate, right?
Yes, sir.
If you want to go to the US, you should do 1 year of HND, right? Uh, so like 1.5 year, you can complete everything. 1 year, you can complete everything. All of those things can be done. And how old are you?
I'm 23 right now.
23. So by the time you are 25, you will be in the States. And by the time you are 30, you will have your green card in your hands. It can be, inshallah, that one day you can then bring in your brother and your family and everyone, right? That's
Hmm.
one of the things that you should do because it's a tremendous opportunity for you to go there, right? You have the skills, what it takes. Keep on working hard. Don't stop learning. If you stop learning, you will be out. There are new courses coming in. Do not leave the courses. Go back and revisit the courses again and again. Okay? So don't leave them thinking like, yes, now you know everything. No, none of us know everything. So we have to keep on learning until the day we leave this world, right? Okay. So mashallah, that's great job. I'm willing to offer you sponsorship, financial sponsorship. Okay.
Hmm,
Going to the States, right? If you complete your HND, right?
hmm,
Go to the States, do your bachelor's last year. That's going to help you. You already have AI ops. That is going to help you. And then do masters because then what happens is that you'll be able to apply for national interest waiver, right? There are multiple other things you can do. uh, Keep on working in AI ops. That is your discipline. How to infuse AI, artificial intelligence, into all of these key things like DevOps and SysOps. That's the future. Everyone is going towards it. You already know a lot through this topic. Even if you search online, you won't be able to find a lot of articles written on it. You had to do a lot of work, but that's how you put up a solution. So you showed here today that you can put up a solution and you can talk about that as well, right? Now comes like the Al Razak part. If you complete the Al Razak part, complete all of those things, you
Hmm.
can, Allah, become one day, and I'm will be more than happy to, provide you all the sponsorship and everything required for EB visa as well, right? That privilege is exclusive for our students who perform very, very well, right? So, Qasim Sadaqat, right? I will remember
Yes.
this. People will be contacting you. Do you have my number?
Yes, I do have.
Send me your message right now so that I can save your name so that I can pick it up. I don't pick up everyone's calls because if the number is not saved, I don't pick it up. There are too many calls, right, happening on my phone. So, mashallah, congratulations. May Allah make it easy for you. I have certain other things for you as well. Uh, if you would be interested in working with us in our AI ops team, that is also on the table. Okay. So
Okay.
we are implementing the same things that you're going through right now. That's why I love the topic because that's a challenge for us. And, in our organization, two people have completed AI ops. So they got the opportunity to work, right? So anyone who completes AI ops, just the AI ops, they get the opportunity to work within our organization. And if they're already working, then they get 25% rise in their salary. If they complete Al Razak and all its requirements, they get 100% increment. That is the policy I have instituted within our own organization, right? So many people in our organizations are doing the same because that is the future, that is the scope, that is what you should follow through. AI ops implementation is in every department: marketing, business, sales, DevOps, SysOps. So, what you're doing here will have far reaching consequences and implementation in each and every discipline in the world. You can work in any industry you like, right? So, that is for me, inshallah. Okay. So, that's your number.
Yes, sir.
It's end with 468.
Yes, sir.
Do you have anything to say, Qasim Sadaqat?
I would like to thank you, Nafi, and yeah, the great teachers like Sir Kazim Sheikh, Abdi Ali, and Sir Raviz, but for sharing their knowledge with me. And yes,
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Yeah, your father is ill. You mentioned that. Is your mother alive?
yes, there she's probably watching this right now downstairs.
Ask her to make dua for me. اللهم إني أسألك
Yes,
شهادة شهادتين في المسجد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. This is my dua. Just say whatever Muhammad Faisal is asking, Allah accept it. That's it. Okay? Inshallah. Jazakallah khair for your time. And I'm really happy. I really enjoyed the presentation that my kids have to wait outside. Okay? Jazakallah khair.